Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is William Stevenson. He has this wonderful, wonderful series of Ricky's Day Trip, all these wonderful books for children. And, how did they come about? Yes, he used to be a teacher. Then he was in taxes for a long time. How did the PopPop press come about, and all of this, what drove him to it? So I want to know. Children's books are incredibly important. It's how our children engage their imagination. It's how they learn to discover things about themselves. And he says he's going to talk about how the project created for his grandson turned into this imaginative and historical education series of Ricky's Dream Trip. And he's got this PopPop travels with grandson Ricky around the world, going throughout time, discovering ancient China, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the colonial America, and also blast off into outer space and dive under the sea. So this imagination is really, really important and inspired by his grandson. So let's actually dive right into it. Books are extremely important for children. And I hope it's not going to be an art that dies out, that everything is tablet and everything is visual, but, sitting with a child next to you and reading a book, snuggling up and reading a book to them and seeing their imagination take off is just something that's really, really beautiful. I've got two baby grandsons, and my one grandson has been read to almost from the day he was being born. And he has massive book library there and loves being read to over and over again, the same book, right? Drive the parents crazy, but they just love it because they see themselves in the story, don't they? They become what they read, and it opens up their possibilities to what they can become in life. So welcome to the show, William.
Well, thank you. And I think you're going to find what I tried to do pretty much right up your alley. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. But I never decide at any level that I was going to write a series of books in any commercial way. When my grandson was 7 years old, and we lived pretty far apart, and so I couldn't see him on a regular basis. And I decided, what can I do to bond and have something that's lasting? So I decided to write a book, but not a commercial book, but something for him, only for him. And I just got a loose leaf book from the store and printed out my story with some pictures from the computer. And well, what I tried to do was three things. A, I wanted to do something to show my grandson that I loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And B, the second thing is he had some self-concept problems, as I'm sure you're aware of, that with children. It's not easy being a kid, is it?
No, not at all.
And so what I tried to do is build him up in the story and make him a hero and make him the center of attraction, make him feel good about himself. And the third thing was to do something that was educational but fun.
Mm-hmm.
So the book that I selected, or the topic I selected, was outer space. And we, in our dream, he would dream, I would come into his dream, and then we would do something. And we decided that we would go into outer space and visit every single planet. So that the educational part is to know all the different planets and the order and the relative size and the special things about it. So I had this, I did it. I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't really know. And what I did, there's my loose leaf book.
Right.
Here's Ricky's picture on the cover, and the title is Ricky's Dream Trip Through the Solar System. Now, at that time, I was not retired. I retired a couple of years ago after, at 81, after about 40 years as international tax accountant. And but I had a client he was in my office to get his taxes done, and he saw this on my desk. Well, could I see that? And I didn't know why he wanted to see it. So he goes and looks through it, and he says, "You know, Bill, coincidentally, I just started a business for self-published authors. Your book is publishable. And not only that, my wife would love to teach it because it was written at the time for a 7-year-old child, and the language is for a 7-year-old child." So we, okay, I said, let's give it a crack. And he introduced me to a great firm, a design firm that did all the artwork for these books. And the owner of the company, his name is Paul Fireman, and the name is Fireman Creative. And he got the project, and he loved it too. He said, "What a great idea, your grandson, and we all want to have a relationship with our grandson, and I'd love to do your book." Of course, it cost me money. It wasn't for free.
Right, exactly.
So, and when the book came out, this is what it looked like. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. For those that are just listening, there's a little boy in a rocket ship, and it says Ricky's Trip
Right.
Up into the Stars.
Yeah, and it's got great artwork in it, and people love it. So the book came out, and because I had so many clients, I had several hundred clients internationally and nationally, and many of them, because of my clients, I think they felt obligated to buy the book. But the ones who really had young kids, they really loved it. The teachers loved it because they could put it into their lessons plan, and they liked the concept.
Yes.
So I said, "Well, all right, I wrote one book. That doesn't make me an author. Let me try another one." And at the time, I was reading about American history. A book on George Washington had just come out, and there was a book on Hamilton and Adams, and that sparked me to do my second book. And I decided to do a dream trip to Philadelphia, Independence Hall, when they were writing the Declaration of Independence. And so I appeared in Ricky's dream, and off we went on a dream ship to Philadelphia. And we landed in the fog so nobody would see us. And we made our way to Independence Hall. And there was a little side thing that I had done. There was a little black boy sitting outside of the hall with a horse from one of the guys inside, and he was crying. And Ricky said, "Well, why are you crying?" He said, "Well, they won't let me go to school, and if I could go to school, I could learn to read and write, and at least I would be free in my mind." The significance of that is I wanted teacher. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it in the book, but I wanted to give the teachers an in for them to discuss freedom and individual and
slavery and all
individual
of that.
rights and the whole thing. So I kind of sneaked that in. And then when we got inside, um, uh, the reason they let us inside because we convinced John Adams, well, this is Ricky's dream, and you're in the dream. You have to let us come in. So in we went, and 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 they were part of the discussion of, well, should we sign the Declaration of Independence or shouldn't we? Why should we? Why shouldn't we? What are the consequences? And that was part of the story. Um, and uh, and the way it ended, uh, John Adams said to Ricky, "Would you like to say something to the group?" And Ricky said, "I'm only a little boy," and he was 8 years old at the time. But it turns out that he was a child prodigy on the guitar, and he said, "Can I sing a song that my pop taught me?" And he sang the song called uh, "How Many Roads Must a Man Walk Down?" It was perfect
Yeah.
for that, even though it was written much later. And
Well, that's the beauty of a dream,
and
isn't it? Anything can happen in the dream. You're not taking it
yeah, of course,
literally. So in a
exactly.
dream,
Yeah,
you
well,
can add and subtract and do all sorts of things in the dream. So yeah,
well, that you really hit the nail on the head because Ricky would say to his grandfather, "Well, can we do this?" His grandfather would say, just like you said, "Well, this is your dream. You can do whatever you want
yeah,
to do." So
exactly.
anyway, so the book came out, and it was really well received. The teachers loved it because they could put also in their lessons plan, and and people loved the concept of the foundation of love that these books were written. So then I started to get inspired. Now you realize, I mean, I have a full-time career. Not just, I mean, I testified before both houses of Congress several times, and I was very active uh, with the head of the IRS. I was on the committee. There was a commissioner's private committee, and I was nominated as and picked as accountant of the year by my organization. I was really very busy, but I still wanted to do something for my grandson,
Yeah.
and I wanted it to last. So I came up with three more places: Egypt, Egypt, ancient Greece, and ancient Rome. So I start to tackle Egypt. Now, these books took me months and months to write because I did a lot of research and I had a problem with writer's block. So anyway, so what are you going to do about Egypt? It's a 6,000-year history. How am I going to pick a scene from Egypt that the kids are going to like? It's not going to be boring, whatever. So lo and behold, what pops out of my reading is something I shouldn't have had to read anything. King Tutankhamun. He was Ricky's age, for heaven's sake, and it was
Right.
like a perfect thing. So I came up with an idea to bring Tutankhamun's life into a story, and at the time, and show Ricky Egypt,
Mm.
the Nile River, where the pharaohs were buried, et cetera, et cetera. But what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I came up with the idea that Tutankhamun's cat was missing. Now, as I'm sure you know that Egypt loved their cats.
Yes, they were revered. Yes.
I mean, I mean, they mummified them for
Right.
thousands of years. So I figured I got people's attention with the cat.
Mhm.
So, and it gave us a chance to go all over Egypt,
Looking for the
up and
cat.
down. Look, where's the cat?
Yes.
And they couldn't find the cat. And Ricky apologized. He said, "Look, I got to wake up. I got to go home. I'm really sorry, And Todd accepted his apology. He knows he tried. He said, "I'll take you back to the stable where you and your grandfather's dream horses are being kept." So they go back to the stable, and who's in the stable? The
Meow.
cat. And not only is the cat there, but she has a litter of kittens.
Ah,
I
yes.
really, really laid it on, didn't I? And and that's pretty much how that story ended.
Wait, because
Uh,
you have to give a hopeful ending,
yeah,
because, I mean, yes, you could have left it, and that's the facts of life that some cats go missing in life, and that's the way it is. But, and not only did they find the cat, but then as life goes on with the kittens,
and you know,
um,
there's a loving part of it. You know, you
mhm,
feel good,
yes,
um, and and Ricky was important for heaven's sake.
yeah,
You know, and it made him feel good. The second the second one of that series was Greece, and we went to Greece and we met Aristotle,
mm,
and it gave me a chance to shoehorn in the Olympics because, as we all
yes,
know,
yes,
where did they start? They
right,
started in Greece,
yes.
and uh, and so to give the story a little oomph, um, Aristotle, who is also the teacher of Alexander the Great, and I brought him in later. Aristotle had a horse that was in the Olympics, and he asked Ricky if he would race his horse, and Ricky agreed. Do I have to tell you who won the race? So anyway, they introduced them to. He got introduced to Alexander, and um, and the fun part of it was Alex. They were at war with Persia
Hmm.
and had all kinds of problems, and we discussed some of those. But the happy part was Alexander the Great wanted to learn how to play his lyre, and he couldn't figure out how to do it, even though Aristotle tried to teach him. And since Ricky is a child prodigy on the guitar, which is different than a
Hmm.
different instrument, but still has same concept with the strings, and he started teaching Alexander the Great how to play, and he started to learn, and and that's pretty much how that story ended.
The
And
beauty of
and
these,
the
the beauty of the stories is that fact that not only giving some educational facts, but you're allowing Ricky and every child that reads the book to believe that they are a contributor, that they can contribute something, they can learn, they can
right
contribute, they can inspire, right? And that anything can happen in a
that's
dream, which in every dream of life, anything can happen if you're willing to work for it. And also opening the kids up to core valid information. And as you said, Olympics is still going on. Alexander, look at the impact he had. Aristotle. There may be names that they brush over at some point in school, but to
yes
have a child going to, but who were they? To
uh,
humanize them, to put them in a
are,
part where they can feel part of the history,
are
opens up that wonderment for wanting them to know more as they grow older.
are you my twin sister? Because that's exactly what I tried to do. Our brain is working on the same. But wait to hear the last one, because this was really a mind blower to me and to many others. The last one, the dream trip, was to meet Julius Caesar.
Hmm.
Now, now, when people like us think of Julius Caesar, we think of Cleopatra. We think of he's in his 50s, and he's a great military man, et cetera, et cetera. Well, as I was doing my research, and I did a lot on this one, I discovered something I never knew, and most people didn't know it either. When Caesar was 16 years old, his father had died, and he was became the head of the family. and the head of the country, a fellow by the name of Cinna, who had a 13-year-old daughter, he made Caesar a high priest of Jupiter and had him marry his daughter. She
Mm-hmm.
was 13. How old was he? 16, 17.
That was the
And
age in those days.
I know.
A life
I mean,
expectancy wasn't very long, right? So, yeah.
yeah. Um, but I was really shocked when I found out. But then, as the story goes on, we find out that a man by the name of Sulla, a couple years later, took over and he wiped out many of the administrators and killed many of them.
Mm,
And Caesar was on the list to lose his life. So Sulla calls him into his office, if they had an office,
hmm
and said, I'm going to spare your life, but there's two things. You have to give up your job and you have to divorce your wife. Now think about this. 17-year-old kid
mm,
looks this leader in the eye and says, I'm not divorcing my wife.
hmm
And he escapes to the mountains. This is all true.
With his
This
wife, I
part
hope.
of no,
No?
no, by himself.
Oh.
He escaped. He gets very sick. He got malaria because he was going to be killed.
hmm
And it turns out that the new head, liked his wife,
Mm,
but I didn't put that in the story. Um, so anyway, so Ricky and his grandfather go to that time period, meet his mother, and his mother tells him what happens, tells him where she thinks they are. They go to the mountains. They meet with him, and and they find out that he's almost dying. And what can we do to save your life? And he said, well, there are a very powerful group of women called the Vestals. I didn't say Vestal virgins.
right.
An 8-year-old kid in the
Yes,
book. I didn't want
vessels are
to.
fine. Yeah.
So
That's something they can learn later.
you'll forgive me for that, won't you?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, there were 30 of them, and they were one of the things I tried to do is introduce women and girls where I could to show that they were important in history too. It wasn't just
Exactly.
about men.
Right.
Um, so uh, Caesar said to them, they're very powerful, and the heads of states always listen to them. So um, PopPop and Ricky go back to see the mother. The mother takes them to the place where the vessels were, and Ricky, who had a hard time public speaking, kind of brought that in.
hmm
Said to the head of the vessels that he would like to talk to them about a problem, but please forgive me because I can't speak very well. But she said, and she calmed him down, and you're doing just fine. And he explained what happened, and they went to Sulla, the head of state, and he pardoned them, pardoned Julius, who left Rome. Now, can you imagine how much a teacher could put this in their
Yes.
work? I mean, here, a 16-year-old, if we had lost Caesar when he was 16 or
Right.
17, all of what he had done, and he
Mm.
was a great man when history shows that he's still considered one of the great military leaders of all time. We would have lost that.
Yeah.
And so I really felt good about that, being able to expand upon that. And
Well, you're
and
planting seeds. That's the beauty of it, right?
yeah,
You're giving the teachers the right seeds that have been planted and things are beginning to grow. And then now, the curiosity in the children is what happens next. And then
That's
it's
it,
that's
exactly what I tried to do.
mhm.
I tried to interest them in a fun way so that it would interest them so much they'd say just what you just said. Well, what happens next? And they could, if it, not
It's
all
like
of
the
them will,
story
but
continues. That's the beauty of
yes.
it, is that, it isn't just the story, the end, and that's it. It's, a story of the end of this dream. But what happens to Julius Caesar? What happens to Alexander? What happens to these other people? I want to know
Right.
more about them. And then that becomes the teacher's dream, in the sense of
Oh,
they're
it is.
interested. They're interested. So let's teach them. Let's keep sharing the stories, because when kids get intrigued, when they get captured in a moment, and they're just hungry for that knowledge. And a kid doesn't want to just have a sermon type lesson. Not many kids learn that way, but from storytelling, kids learn so much, especially when they feel they can be a part of the story, and
And an important part.
an important part of the
I
story, and
mean,
the fact that it's done in a dream where it's not so literal, and but anything can happen in that dream. But you're taking historical facts that the teachers then can play on, or not just the teachers, the parents, and go, oh, let's see what happened to Julius Caesar. Let's see what books we can find on the next level of life. Did he stay married? How did he become the great leader? And it becomes something intriguing for the kids to want to know. And then this is something that stays with them as they grow up. They learn this, they learn that, but they go back to those stories as kids. And it becomes a reflection of what happened in the past as a reflection of what's happening today, and vice versa. So I think it's a wonderful way of planting those seeds of information, but planting wonderment and curiosity, and are willing to explore what comes next. What impact? Why did they have such an impact? Is that impact still here today? Who in today's society is having that impact? It opens up so much beautiful dialogue that can just grow as they grow.
well, you're really making me feel good. I'm so glad that I'm speaking to you, and your brain is speaking back to me. It's really, I could hug you if I could get through the screen. Believe me.
Virtual hug.
Let me tell you about the last book. There were two more books. One was Under the Sea, which is more science fiction. But the last book, uh, I was really surprised um, about ancient China,
Mhm.
and but it's really about Marco Polo.
Oh yes, I love Marco Polo.
And every kid knows the name Marco Polo. He's on TV. The name is
Yes.
on
Would we
TV.
have spaghetti without Marco?
There you go. Um, when Marco Polo was 17, lived in Venice, his father and his uncle returned from China and took him back with them. Kublai Khan is a great leader. He was the great grandson and of the main Khan, and he was 17. They went to China. They 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 met the Khan, who loved them, and they were there for 17 years.
Mm.
Ricky and his grandfather, when they went to that area, they discovered that he wanted to come home. He
Mm.
was gone for 17 years. And so what happened was, um, I'm going to make this short. What happened was they met with the Khan, and they explained, and at the time, they discovered that the head of Persia, his favorite wife, had died.
Mm.
And she made her husband promise that he would remarry somebody from the family. And there was somebody from the family, that was a 17-year-old princess living in the palace with the Khan. And by the way, that's now Peking. Um, so Khan Khan agreed to let her marry, and the people from Persia sent three emissaries to bring her home, and Ricky convinced the Khan that is not an easy trip to make. You can't take a princess over this rough land. The weather is bad. There's constant fighting. She said, why don't you let my father and my uncle and I take her by boat back to Persia? We know how to use a boat. Your people don't. And the king, Kublai Khan, who by the way was very sick at the time because he'd lost some people in his family and he had gout, and he didn't want to lose Marco Polo. He loved him, and
Mm-hmm.
Marco Polo was very loyal to him. I never knew that,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and he said, "Okay, I'll agree to let you take the princess home, and then you can go home to Venice." And and uh, and that's how the story ended. That he was finally freed from China and went home, and
And
that's
look what he brought back with him, right?
yeah.
I mean, the whole pasta making, the silks, the everything else. I mean, it opened
No,
up.
no, well, not the pasta.
I thought Marco Polo was the one that took them up the pasta.
Yeah,
That
everybody does, but
No, okay, who did?
I don't know.
Oh, we've got to read to see that. That's a
Yeah, I
question
have to
there that,
look
that
into
for
that.
kids is like, who did? Because I thought it was Marco Polo that did that.
Yeah,
Uh,
everybody does. So anyway, what do you think? Having fun?
oh, definitely. I mean, I have two baby grandsons. So, one is 2 year young yet. He's only 4 months, and the other one is 2.5. But he loves stories. And I think what we're doing with stories, especially when kids love them repetitively and repetitively, is we're instilling certain knowledge inside their minds. And when you can do it through wonderment, when you can do it through exploration, reveal, they may not always comprehend, as an 8 year or 9 year old will, but a younger generation may not always completely comprehend, but they're intrigued with the story, but the subconscious has absorbed it. And then
Yeah.
later on, as stuff comes up, it's like, are there that's been reignited again and they want to know more. But I think the important thing about books is for children to know you can dive into a different world, but then it makes you come up and see your world differently and interact differently. And it's such a beautiful educational tool for children.
And
I mean, it's an educational tool for the parents of the teachers, but it's an educational tool for the children that they don't know they're actually having a lesson. But it's one of the perfect ways of actually giving them a lesson is through books.
and one of the things that I did with the series, I started out when he was 7, and I carried it out until he was 12. So uh, it,
Did you
the
stop dreaming
language,
at
the
12
lang,
or what happened? How did you finish it? Or are you open for more books?
I'm kind of tired.
Uh-huh. And
I'm getting. I have writer's block. I did a lot of reading on Napoleon, and I thought I would do Napoleon next, but if my writer's block ends, that'll be my next one.
right, it will. It will.
It's
There'll be
a
something that will
and
just spark it and off it will go.
it's a great story.
Yeah. I mean, all of these wonderful stories, as I said, I like the way that you've done it through the dream, because in the dream they can interact with people there. If you're doing it as a reality, how can they go back in time? You haven't put a spaceship and going back in time or anything like this. It's that in a dream we can do everything, and children do dream, and don't always understand what it is they're dreaming, because dreams are not linear, flat. and always explainable logically, but they're always instilling something. They're always laying their layers from which kids can springboard from. So having something that's educational at the same time is wonderful.
The other overlay of this, like most of us, really upset with what's happened these last number of years with the world we're
Yeah,
living. And I had hoped I was capable of creating something with love and joy that can be superimposed
yeah.
over this horrible existence that people have, um, and maybe make life a little bit better.
Well, it's showing kids to look to the sunny side of the street, right?
Yeah,
That no matter what the obstacle is, no matter what the challenge is, if you believe and if you come at it with compassion and love, that there's always the sunny side of the street. And I think what's happened with the world, and it's reflecting on our children, is jadedness, is a believer that nothing can happen, no one counts, and it's only
right.
about, the opulent and the powerful, and who cares about anybody else. And this is why I think we're seeing so much depression and so much anxiety and so much suicide and so many murders coming from our children, is that
Yeah.
disconnect. And we need to bring that connection, not only of wonderment, but of empowerment, for them to believe that no matter how dark it gets out there, there is always the light, and the light is within, that they can
Yeah.
be that light. And if we
And
prepare
that's
them,
exactly what I tried to do, is make Ricky shine.
yeah,
Uh, you talk about depression and feeling bad about yourself and not being able to do things, and here he is, can do everything
yes.
because of he's a good person, and
I
let's hope
mean,
it works.
one of the things that we're looking at in society, and I know you were a teacher for a while and left because of the politics, which I don't blame you. Um, when you want to teach, you're doing it for that love of knowledge that you want to pass on to children. You want to empower them to
Yeah.
absorb knowledge and know how to use the knowledge, but to use it consciously, to use it with awareness, to use it in a way that is empowerment, not power, but empowerment. And when you kind of come from it from that passion, that love, that's what is picked up by the child. And if you've got that political arena in schools of, restrictions and everything else coming in, it interferes with that. It interferes with that flow. I have a book series coming out, an anthology, and it's called Our Forgotten Children. And each person contributing a chapter is talking to what we're doing wrong in raising our children. We have so many dysfunctional adults today because we're neglecting our children as they grow up. And we're doing it through the education, we're doing it through dictation, we're doing it from neglect, we're doing it from not holding families together. There's so much that we need to look at and be aware of, that we need to change so that these children do feel empowered and that anything is possible. And the willingness to learn and explore and discover is something that goes with them throughout their life. And then they won't reach that phase where it's, I don't count, nobody loves me, I'm going to retaliate, I'm just going to exit the world. We need to put that empowerment in our children, and doing it through books is definitely a way that is wonderful to do. So you really, you've left a beautiful legacy for your grandson, but for other children as well.
Well, one of the things that even my grandson realized, because he just graduated from college, that these books will be with him forever.
Yes,
And when he has his own family, he'll have something to give to his kids.
yes.
And
With pride, with love, with,
it's
feeling of participation. Yeah.
it's kind of a legacy that
Mm.
um, I hope will live on.
Hmm.
Who knows?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of shows on kind of legacy writing or leaving your story or the power and the art of story. And whether you're, writing a memoir, which I've just done myself, or what people are telling stories in different ways, we want to leave our history. We want to leave it with someone because from that there is an understanding of your impact in life, your struggles in life, but also what we can do about it. We've put so much emphasis on struggle today, but what we're not doing is empowering the people to see the solution and to actually understand that stepping into love, curiosity, and compassion is a way that you're going to see how we can resolve things. Instead, it's all about sensationalism and doom and gloom and world's going to hell in a handbasket, and there is no power, but we always have power. We always have power if we're willing to open up and see it and keep that wonderment alive. So the legacy of keeping that wonderment alive. But the beauty I love about children's books is a child will get their thing from it. But when an adult reads to children, it's a reminder for them to keep their curiosity open. It's a
Yeah.
reminder for them to keep their wonderment going and not just, the drudgery of every day. It allows them and gives them permission to open up their own senses and explore again. So it's not just a gift to the kids and future generations, it's a gift to the people that read them too.
Yeah. When he was 7 and 8, uh, my daughter loved reading the books to him. Um, it was very nice. Let's see how it lasts. Okay.
Well, that you may not write them anymore, but the books are out there.
Yeah,
They're already in the school system. They're already there. They're timeless. They're not going to expire in their content.
that's
And whether there is any more written or not, or whether these ones themselves, from one child to the next, to the next, to the next, can be that ignition of their imagination.
yeah.
That's the beauty of a book. It keeps on giving,
Thank
right?
you.
Definitely. So you've definitely had an extraordinary life, from teacher to taxes. I'm not sure about, jumping from teacher to taxes if that was kind of going from one pit to the other. But
Well,
you know,
my undergraduate degree was in business education.
mhm,
So when I changed fields, uh, it wasn't that big of a jump.
right, right. But I mean, when we look at, what we just say, there's two things guaranteed, death and taxes. Right. And, taxes is always a thing. And, funny enough, how we catch most criminals, right, is generally through their taxes. We can't get them for what they really are doing. We'll get them some other way. So I imagine it's, quite an extraordinary journey on its own. But I suppose in a way, the calculation of your work as a tax person is the kind of same principle that you use in investigating a story and how a story can come together.
Well, it's in my case, it's really even deeper than that because I also represented people before the Internal Revenue Service when they were in trouble. So I had to develop a reality that the IRS would accept
Mm.
and save my clients' finances. And
So solutioner as well.
right,
Mm.
one of the problems of retiring 2 years ago, I had really wonderful relationships with
Mm.
my people. It wasn't just professional; it was really affection
Yeah.
besides. And after having left, that hurt.
Mm-hmm.
What didn't hurt was the loss of the stress,
Yes.
which is unbelievable
Yes.
in that field. But um, and so this book started uh, gaining the series. My publisher decided to warm them up and put together the three ancient books and now I'm talking to you and with your lovely blue eyes. It's really fine. Thank you.
I'm very glad you are talking to me. As I said, I've interviewed many an author, and the funny thing is that all of the children's authors that I've interviewed, none of them set out to be that. It
Uh,
was, they were doing different lines of work, different things in life, and it came about that they wanted to leave a message with the children. They wanted the children to see life in a different way. They were kind of quintessentially writing a book for children that they wished they had had when they were young, right? So was that for you? I mean, I know you're writing it for Ricky, but would these been kind of books that you wish you had had when you were young?
um, First of all, I read a lot when I was young. I love science fiction.
Me too.
Um, uh, I really tried to accomplish. I wanted my grandson to realize that no matter what, his grandfather loves him,
Mm,
and I wanted that to stay with him.
yeah.
And I tried to make him feel good about himself by the character he was in the book. But the main thing, the books were written on the foundation of love, and I really mean that.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to accomplish.
But
The
there's
rest,
there's another thing you're doing there that's so important. In especially North America, it's become very much about putting grandparents out to pasture, right?
yeah,
And nobody's got time for them. That's going to be another book we're going to be doing is the Forgotten Seniors book that's going to be out there of how many people just put people in a home and don't have time for them, or don't have patience, and don't realize what an absolute beautiful pot of knowledge they are that is just ready for the picking. The fact that you've done this as grandfather and grandson, right? And that your grandson was excited to hear and go on the adventure with granddad is bridging that wonderful gap that unfortunately is being lost. So
yeah.
it's inviting other grandparents to have a relationship with their grandchildren and parents to actually understand the beauty of that relationship with grandparents.
Well, you mentioned that's very interesting. I was dean of students of several colleges, Pratt Institute being one, and I had a large international group of students. And one of the things I learned is that other countries treat the elderly a lot better than
Yes,
we do in the United States.
yes.
Uh, I was quite I was quite impressed with that.
Yeah, I mean, they really revere those that have
Yeah,
paved the way.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
unfortunately, we have a society today that is so complacent, walk around with their phones. And that phone was invented by somebody that you think is archaic, that you haven't got any time for. That TV, that this, that, everything came from people and their own innovations, their own sweat, their own trial and tribulations for you to have today. And, just like you have with the books of going back in time and looking at the root of the people to open up that conversation, it's the same thing of, if you've still got a couple more books in you, do one on technology, the Steve Jobs and the Microsofts and all of those are the people because through the internet and through computers and phones, we have changed the world
Yeah,
completely. But instead of
yeah.
looking at it as a tool and as a gift, they've kind of replaced themselves and become the computer. Do you remember we grew up with always worrying about that AI was going to come and robots were going to take us over? Well, robots have
Well,
taken us over. It's called a cell phone.
well, I'm 80. I'm 84. When I was a kid, the most complicated technological item was trying to get toast dark.
Yes,
That
exactly.
was it.
Well, look how far
It
we've
didn't even.
come in technology.
I know.
But I think one thing that I think that's really kind of missing with kids today, and also with their parents, is they've got such an entitlement of what they think they should have, but not an appreciation of where it comes from. You know,
Yeah.
food is grown in the center aisle of the grocery store, not where the farmer's struggling, against weather,
And,
against taxes, against, GMOs and everything else to grow food for us. Uh, and I think, we need to turn our kids back and look at root cause, root call of where things started and how they grew, because I think then the kids would have more appreciation of what is being handed to them. And I'm sounding like a grandmother right now, but as a mother
yeah, I
and a
know.
grandmother, we've had the time to sit back and observe more. And when you've got people that think they're, I hate the word entitlement. I don't think anybody's entitled to anything. We strive for it, we work for it, we become it, but we don't, this entitlement that it should just be given just because, I think is
Yeah.
something that is ruining the world, and we need to change that. And stories that take people back to looking at, looking at Caesar, the history, you see him as this great man, but you didn't see the struggle of him trying to save his own life, of trying to save his wife, and trying to save everything else. And Alexander and his difficulties playing an instrument, when you think he knew everything. By taking people back to seeing the vulnerability of the hero allows us to know that we can have vulnerability in ourselves as well, that we don't all have to be perfect. And there is no such thing as perfection, right? There is, I am perfect in what I do and why I do it, but I am not perfection myself.
Well, you were certainly a joy to spend an hour with, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you very, very much. Now, how do people get hold of all of these books?
There is a website. It's called poppoppress.com. If you go into that, the covers of all the books are listed. You could click on the cover. It tells you a little bit about the story and how much it costs, and how to buy it. And there's other things in there too.
Your YouTube
Um,
is on here with you reading stories,
Pardon?
and your YouTube is on here as well, where you're reading stories.
I
You,
I'm not sophisticated enough to use YouTube.
oh, but you're up here. So somebody sophisticated for you. Your YouTube is up there. And of course you're on Facebook as well. William.Stevenson 104. You're up there on Facebook as well. Um, and I think this is just, I'm always saying to people, please give the gift of books, to a family. They don't need another big thing or another computer thing. Give the books where they can turn the pages, where you can sit with parents or grandparents, older siblings with younger siblings, and turn the page and see the excitement and start, when they ask the question, I don't know, let's look that up. Let's investigate that.
And
And
guess where you're going to look it up? Your cell phone.
for some people, yes, definitely. And again, okay, it's a great tool to look it up.
It
Right? But don't
is.
become your cell phone, right? It is a tool. Remember, it's a tool. These are all
I,
tools. They're tools
I,
to bring
I,
yourself out.
I love the cell phone for the ability to do the research
Yeah.
because as I get older, I forget things like
Hmm.
movie stars or something, and
Yes.
and look it up like that, and I feel so much better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's for. It's the resource of information at your fingertips. But
Yeah.
what does that information mean? You need something that sparks the meaning behind it. And so looking information up, just having it for information's sake, no. Looking it up with some context behind it, some more inquiry. There's something that makes you question and want to investigate even more. That is really healthy. And that's what you've done with these books. You've given the gift of being able to, for it, what happened next, or where else did they go, or what else about this person? and it opens it up. It's perfect gift for parents or teachers or alike to go, let's go and explore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So folks, please, you've got grandchildren, you've got children. You want to donate some books to your local school or community. You just want to get behind them. It's poppoppress.com. All of the books are there that you can order. Order them all. Christmas is coming up. Start your shopping early. Give a book. It keeps on giving and giving and giving. And you're giving wonderment, you're giving excitement, you're giving exploration, you're giving connection, you're giving love. So please go and get these books for Christmas, order them now. And you don't have to wait for Christmas for anything. I mean, a book's great for any time, and it's a wonderful thing for your children. So thank you so much. Please keep writing. Undo
Thank
that
you.
block. Just you do your own investigation. It will spark your writers opening up
Okay.
again. Keep on going, okay?
Well, you're very inspiring and very pretty. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Until next time, folks, remember, being engaged, being wondrous, always inquiring is what keeps us alive. Until next time, bye. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.